The Curves editor has several variations. By default, you have the Custom Curves, which offers a quick way to adjust brightness and contrast. There's other variations here through these buttons. These will have a name, X versus Y, where X is what you're selecting and Y is what you're changing. We'll come back to those in a moment. Let's start with the Custom Curves. We can insert points and move them on this default curve to again rapidly change your brightness and contrast. For example, let's say I want to adjust the midtones. You can click on this curve in the center, add a single point, drag the point up to brighten the midtones, drag it down to darken the midtones. If you want to crush the shadow area down to black, you can drag the left point towards the right while keeping it at the bottom. If you want to move the highlights towards the maximum, you can drag the top point to the left while keeping it at the top. I'll reset that. You can also use this to rapidly alter your contrast. A quick way to do that is to insert 2 points and shape the curve into what I like to call an S curve. Add a point in the shadow area and a point up at the highlight area. Move the highlight point up and the shadow point down, therefore creating a very shallow S. Now there are more pixels with values in the shadow area, more pixels with values in the highlight area, and fewer in the midtone area. I can tell that because the slope there is more steep. By default, this curve works in all the channels equally. We can unlink the channels. I'll unlink right here. Now you can adjust luminance, which is Y, or RGB. For example, I can alter the blue channel by itself. Now because I was linked previously, all the curves start the same shape, but now I can alter just the blue channel. And you can relink them anytime you want to. Below those channel buttons, there's a number of sliders that default at 100. And these are the strength of the curve. So let's say you adjust your curves and you feel that maybe the effect is too strong, you can lower these below 100. Or unlink all the channels again and back off on a single channel. Notice that as I adjust one channel, the other channels do not change, which is different from the behavior you get when using the wheels thanks to the luminance mix feature. I'll relink those. Below the edit section, there's a soft clip section. And this is designed to recover parts of the distribution that are clipped, either up at the maximum or down at the minimum of 0. Let's give that a try with the other clip. Go ahead and insert another serial node here, and then I'll increase the contrast. I'll make sure that some of the values are clipped at 0 and up at the maximum. Let's start by recovering the highlights. There's a high cell and an HS cell. HS stands for high soft. I can start by lowering the high value below 50. As I do that, the highlights start to move towards the left away from the maximum. Now the strength of this soft clip is controlled by HS. So if I raise HS, the rollback is more extreme. So I adjust these two to recover the highlights and bring them down below the maximum so they're no longer clipped. Do the same with the low end, although it's a bit more subtle, particularly in a large color space, such as this ACES color space. But right now we definitely have pixels with a value of 0. This works in opposite fashion though. If I raise this low above 50, you'll see that some of those values start to move towards the right and are no longer 0. The strength of this result is controlled by LS. If I raise it above 0, it becomes weaker. You can adjust both to get the result you want. So it's no longer a very harsh clip, and now some of those values extend between 0 and 1/10 of a nit. It would seem like 1/10 of a nit and 0 nits is essentially the same, but there is a subtle difference which you can sometimes see in your view. In a space like this, with ACES, emulates motion picture film quite well, where the shadow areas of motion picture film are much more sensitive, where you'll see much more variation. Let's go back to our other clip and try some of the other curves variations. So hue versus hue allows you to select a particular hue, then change the hue of that hue you had selected. So let's temporarily increase saturation so we can see how this works. We'll use Color Boost. There's more saturation now. In terms of selecting hue, there are several ways to do it. You can click one of these primary or secondary color buttons down here. For example, let's say we want to target blue. I'll click the blue button, and that inserts 3 points on this horizontal curve. The hollow point is the one that targets the color you selected, like blue. The other 2 are anchor points and are there to prevent you from altering the rest of the curve. You can move this center point up or down to affect the hue of that blue area. Move it up, it becomes more green. If we move it down, it becomes more violet. You can also change the hue rotation cell directly. If you Drag to the left, you get negative rotation in terms of hue rotation, and the point moves down. Drag to the right, get a positive value in terms of hue rotation, and the point moves up. I'll reset that. You can also place your mouse in the view and select the color interactively through the eyedropper. So let's say we want to target the orange color here on this book. It gives you 3 points, but they're much closer together to more finely select that color. Again, I can move that point up or down. That'll affect everything that has that orange hue, including the skin. Of course, you never have to be that extreme. You can make much more subtle adjustments. In fact, I can reset my color boost here so it's not so extreme. So a little bit more towards violet or green. Also insert points manually. Just click on the curve. You generally want a couple of anchor points so you don't affect other parts of the curve you don't want to manipulate. You can set as many sets of points as you want. I'll reset that. Let's try the next one. Hue versus saturation. You select the hue, it changes the saturation. For example, let's select the couch color here at the left, which is cyan. It can increase its saturation or decrease the saturation. Let's try a third one. Hue versus luminance. Again, choose a hue and affect its brightness. I'll select the skin tone, increase or decrease the skin brightness. Try the next one. Luminance versus saturation. You pick a brightness and change its saturation. So for example, let's select the wall beside the lamp here, raise that point up, and you'll see saturation in that area is increased. It'll affect all areas that have equal brightness, so it also affects the skin tone on the actor's face. Next one is saturation versus saturation, and the last one is saturation versus luminance. Now of course you can use these in conjunction. So for example, let's say I want to alter the left side of the couch so it better matches the right side of the couch. Well, first I could start with hue versus hue. I can alter that section so maybe it's a bit more greenish. Then go to hue versus saturation. Reduce its overall saturation. Then go to hue versus luminance and affect the brightness of that same area. Now I've made the left side of the couch a bit greener, a bit more desaturated, and a bit brighter. So the curves editors give you a lot of control over your brightness, contrast, hue, and saturation. It's much more interactive, in some ways easier to get a fine tune. That's not mandatory to use those. You have to decide what combination of color controls you prefer to give you the results you want in the most rapid manner.